So this is the environment that Nintendo was about to embark upon. For a small company, it would not have been the safe move to introduce a home console at this time. It wouldn't be as simple as just producing the next best thing. People weren't waiting for the next Nintendo or even the next Atari. The success of the NES was not some fluke by an upstart company looking for a quick buck in a new industry. That story just wasn't possible with consumers being extremely wary of video gaming. They had to come up with a solid plan. Nintendo had initially dealt with Worlds of Wonder, the company that was at the time the darling of the toy industry with its laser tag and Teddy Ruxpin toys, in order to get the NES on the shelves. These wheelings and dealings in and of themselves are another story though. Now, to say that the reason the NES was successful was because it catered to a wider audience is only part of the story. These days, Nintendo is known, almost to a fault, for catering to a younger audience. But this was not some long-held company credo though. Ever since 1889, when it was founded, Nintendo has never shied away from business practices catering to an entire range of ages. They varied from things for children and adults, like game card manufacturer on which the company was founded, to things only meant for adults, like a taxi service or even quote-unquote love hotels, which were places that consenting adults could rent for the evening and consent their brains out. With 100 years of existence, experience, and the ability to be flexible in a wide range of ventures, Nintendo was about to make one of the most calculated and savvy business moves in history. Let's go with an analogy here. Let's say that as an avid arcade gamer, you get used to a certain level of quality. And within these high-quality games, you start to notice that you really enjoy specific genres. Maybe it's space shooters, maybe it's platformers. That's akin to liking ice cream, but loving chocolate ice cream. When you walk into a Baskin-Robbins, you'll probably go for the chocolate. You may even go for the fudge or chocolate chip cookie dough. But you'll probably stay away from things like the Superman ice cream. But now imagine this. This time, bring your little brother, or your child, who's never had ice cream before. They might be interested in this colorful bit of ice cream that tastes like bubblegum. You might even suggest coffee ice cream or mint chocolate chip from your previous experiences with them. But it may not look as tempting as the pink and blue ice cream. They might even have trouble deciding because all the flavors look good. Why not try them all before settling for one? This is why Nintendo had only a passing interest in the arcade gamers as a market. This isn't to say that they were only interested in young gamers primarily. It was catering to a new audience that was the key. A group of people that were willing to purchase games because they were popular, but also willing to try out a variety of games. The average NES gamer was much younger than the average Atari 2600 adopter. This also meant that your average NES gamer had the Nintendo as their first gaming system ever. The other half of revitalizing the video game industry comes in the control that Atari never had over the releases of third parties. Anyone walking into an ice cream store and persuaded to try these lovely flavors might be turned off of ice cream for a while. This is why Nintendo implemented the official Nintendo seal of quality. It gave the notion that Nintendo only approved the best games for their system. While there was some evaluation on the quality of these games, Nintendo only generally allowed each publisher to release 5 games per year. It was this limitation that was the most important in keeping the quality of the NES library high. With a limited amount of titles to publish per year, game developers really had to put forth their best efforts in order for their particular game to be released by their publisher, effectively creating a sort of in-house competition. So why are there so many great games for the NES that were neglected? First, you had the high number of quality games. Also, there was a lack of a way to effectively advertise the games. Then in catering to a new audience, you're catering to young gamers and old gamers unfamiliar with the market. This led to a situation where most of the kids that grew up with the Nintendo had the games bought for them by their parents. Add to that the lack of gaming information out there, and you get plenty of overlooked games. Think of this example. What if your parents bought your music for you? And what if the only music you knew about was music that your friends already had bought? What if your only real indicator of how good that music was the CD cover? Or failing that, they had to ask the Best Buy music clerk what music you might like. A game like Ico wouldn't have survived before the internet was largely in use. How many people would have bought Parappa the Rappa based on the cover art? Or a truly scary thought, what release of the week Drek would your local GameStop employee have recommended to unsuspecting parents? What this means is that you get a very sporadic buying pattern for all but the top-selling games, with some very good games being neglected. Even though these 10 games range greatly in style, tone, and gameplay, they do have one common characteristic. They are unique in the NES landscape. Now, are they unique because the little interest they did garner wasn't enough to warrant clones? In some cases, yes, and it's unfortunate. So let's start with number 10.